Start the clock.
I got to tell you.
That was his.
But I got to tell you, man. There's a real. When people got the message that you could hit Americans once and level them with the barracks and they would retreat, that does send a message, and that does inspire a lot of ugly people who think they can intimidate us by attacking us. And that does create, that cycle got started, and people can argue, with Lebanon.
And it would have been better if we had stayed in Lebanon?
That's the part of the problem with being pretending you're an empire, not a republic.
But when you don't respond to that, or you respond in that way, and you cumulatively then don't respond to the East African embassy bombings, you don't respond to the USS Cole bombing, you don't respond to
we did respond.
The problem is, though, that if you what we are now going down, we're going down the road that Israel is going down, which is to have a cycle of violence. You attack, we attack. We respond to every attack. And there is no end to that unless we have some clear, defined goals in the war on terror. And that's where we lack right now, is a clear endpoint. What are we trying to achieve?
Correct. Our end game now is don't do stupid stuff, I believe your candidate for the next presidential race said. I'm in agreement with you. Some situations, particularly foreign policy and national security, have to be managed. They can't be solved. This is a problem that's been going on millennia. And we go, because we're Americans, and there's no exclusive province to either party, we go to solution instead of management.
We did respond to the embassy bombings. Clinton sent a cruise missile and blew up a pharmaceutical factory in Sudan. So he was attacking the wrong country before it was cool.
Mary, care to respond?
He's in the process of destroying himself.
Right. No, that was actually one for you. Democrats blame, Mary, this person says, blame the do-nothing Congress on the Republicans. What is the Republican rebuttal to that?
Well, the opposition party is to oppose, but I would also say something you probably don't know, Texter, that 370 pieces of bipartisan legislation were passed out of the House. Energy, immigration, tax reform. Sitting where?
Major pieces?
370, which a lot of major stuff was inside there.
Bipartisan.
Bipartisan. Look it up. I don't make up stuff. I'm not Paul Krugman. This is true.
Okay. Give me...
Keystone Pipeline. Reforms to ACA. Corporate and individual tax reform.
These are bipartisan?
Bipartisan.
This is bipartisan, like the way it was when the Louisiana Republican voted for the ACA and Nancy Pelosi said it was bipartisan. This is not. I mean.
Okay. Well.
I mean, let's
see what happens when we take over the Senate and Harry Reid is not constipating this legislation. Let's see what gets done. Just getting in your vernacular.
I mean, the record we've seen, frankly, is that the only time anything gets done is when Boehner ditches the Hastert rule, which, by the way, is bullshit in the first place, because even Hastert says it wasn't a real thing. And every time the president actually tries to reach out, support erodes from positions that Republicans supported in the past, because he's considered politically toxic by Republicans to support something the president supports.
Democratic erosion at this point.
Yeah, we could talk about Southern Democrats and all that dynamic.
Here's a question I've asked also, so it's interesting to me. Does it really matter who wins the Senate next month? Won't there be a filibuster prevent anything from being done? I've asked that question. I asked her to think of Nancy Pelosi.
Well, I mean, there's not a filibuster in the House.
Depends what the makeup of the Senate.
No, the Senate.
Yeah.
If the makeup of the Senate is more of the same, in conjunction with the upcoming 2016 race, no, things will just stay in this gridlock. However, the founders divined gridlock. They want us to, when we're not in a consensus.
They didn't want this much.
There's a difference between compromise and consensus. Compromise is Solomon's baby, and you end up with an inferior product. If you get data-driven, outcome-based consensus, like they do at Google, like they do at Apple.
Mary, what are you talking about? No, listen. I mean, seriously, man. The country is based on principled compromise. The Constitution is based on principled compromise. We've had divided government a ton before, including in the 1990s. We always got a lot done. No, principle's there. The problem is compromise has become a dirty word. And you know, you want to look at where the bridge is going to get built. I mean, look at, you know, if Greg Orman, the independent from Kansas, gets elected, and Angus King, an independent from Maine, and all of a sudden you got a coalition of folks who could be the balance of power, maybe that'll restore some of the ability to build bipartisan bridges. But we have the least productive, least popular Congress in American history right now, and it's because they're so divided, they're totally dysfunctional. It's a break with American history.
He could be the Republican nominee and probably will be. And by the way, in this country, the Republican can always win. You know, they always said, well, you know, the Republicans are losing minorities and they're losing women. Yeah, but they never tried a race war election. Yeah. They never, like, really roused up those people who, when you lift up the rock, you find out what's living in this country. And Obama got, like, 40-something% of the white vote against Mitt Romney. Trump's going to get more.
And I think that with
he's 9 percentage points behind Romney among white voters. But what I will say,
Trump is?
Yes, in a general election, yeah. He's well behind Romney among white voters. He gains some and he loses others.
He's going to move to the middle. That's the problem.
Look,
this is why this is important.
I don't think he will move to the middle.
No, I think
he doesn't know how to do that.
No, he's going to
He does not know how to adjust.
I think that
he's who he is.
Who you're talking about, Ted?
No, I'm talking about
Trump. He doesn't know how to adjust either. No, Trump.
No, Ted will know how to move to the middle, not Trump.
I disagree with you.
Trump will not. Trump knows only one speed. I'm the best.
No, he will say stuff that is appealing.
He's not obligated to be consistent. No one expects him to be.
Exactly right. 70% of women, for example, can't bear the thought of voting for Trump in a general election. All women. He's going to say yes. But he's gonna try to figure that out. Remember, he's super smart. He went to Wharton. So he's gonna try to figure out the language that makes him more palatable to groups. He's gonna do that. And that's
what he might do is divide.
He's never done that.
What he might do is deliver a serious blow to the Republican Party for 10 years.
One time where he got more reasonable. He calculatedly said, you know what, I think I'm going to be...
He says that he doesn't want to see poor people out in the street. He wants to have health care for everyone. I mean, he said that, right?
No, actually,
he said the thing about trade, which is a Democratic position often, and he thinks that we should be creating jobs in America. He has said stuff that is appealing to my side of the aisle. And I think that he will, he will try to moderate.
But he's constitutionally incapable of not doing crazy when he's in front of a camera, right? That's the point.
Yeah, but we saw him read from a teleprompter. Right. We saw him at AIPAC reading from a teleprompter. We saw him being disciplined.
Right.
You know, it happened once, he can do it again.
He fucked it up anyway.
One little thing he went off.
I'll tell you what's interesting about Trump? I've never seen white people scramble before. Like, I've never seen, like, white America really, like, confused and, like, what the fuck are we going to do about that? It's very interesting. It's very intriguing. Like, Donald Trump, Donald Trump to me is like white Hurricane Katrina. It's like, we didn't realize it was going to be, the levees have broken, and everyone is panicking right now, and it's interesting to watch.
You live here too.
I live here too, but here's the thing.
Trust me, it's going to be worse for you.
But here's the thing. I'm from the hood. I don't trust anybody. I think everybody's corrupt.
But you don't think it matters if Trump is or anybody?
No, of course it matters. I mean, it definitely matters. I'm just saying it's an intriguing thing to watch. Like, I mean, I think, you know, I've had a healthy mistrust of literally every candidate that's ever existed in my lifetime. So I'm like, yeah, he's in the pile with the others.
Obama?
With Obama, listen, we were all very excited. We were young, we were excited, we were very happy, you know. And until Corey runs, you know, we're just going to hang out.
When is that going to be?
I was about to chime in and say that these are the days where I'm going to run, but not necessarily for something, more like from something.
But you're going to give the white people a turn, and they're going to fuck it up, and then you're going to be like...
ready to
going to be like, come on.
So
Obama was pretty good. You miss him.
The first time I was on this show, you said that, hey, this Obama, if he gets this thing right, you remember this joke, don't you?
No.
That they're going to think that these black guys are good at this thing, like basketball. They're going to. That was my introduction to this show. And here it is, 8 years later, and I'm still suffering through the same joke.
Okay. Thank you very much. We got to go.
Yeah, I mean, they're in it for the money, right? I mean, that's
exactly.
But
that's what people don't. Yeah, they're in it to save. No, they're in it for the money.
But it's more like our president and the drug czar Botticelli, right? Their souls are good. I think they're good people who want to do a good job for the American people. And over here, you have these heads of pharmaceutical companies, and they feel like quarter over quarter, year over year, their bottom line is like air that they need to breathe. So if you have somebody who wants to do a good job for the country versus someone who wants to survive, you're not. It's not working.
Wait, let's be. I think we should be clear. The drug czar is an awful person. It's an awful office that should not exist.
Right.
We have a drug policy, and the entire legal infrastructure is set up to treat us as children. It gives pharmaceutical companies more power. It gives the FDA more. It makes it more difficult to come out as an addict or having a substance abuse problem. So the government is implicated here too, and you know what we need to do. We've grown up on many issues, I think, in the country, and we're starting to on drugs. But it's the carceral state that gets in the way of all of this type of stuff. So
whether or not
Portugal legalized all drugs and decriminalized all drugs, and drug abuse rates plummeted, crime associated with drugs fell. Addiction rates fell after they legalized all drugs.
Look, I understand. Look, I'm not an advocate for jail. I'm an advocate for treatment, but. You know, whether or not the office is something.
I can't sit by and somebody say the drug czar is a good person. That's
no. Whether or not the office is something that should even exist is not something that I'm an expert on, and I don't pretend to talk about it. But I do think he's a good soul, and I do think.
But you're running a treatment center. But you might have an opinion on that.
Well, wait a minute.
It's not exactly from left field.
Wait a minute. He's a recovering addict.
Like you.
That's right. So, you know, when you're in it, and these are our people, you've got a vested interest.
But this does affect your business.
What part of it?
Having a drug czar, having our policy the way it is in this country, where we punish people instead of treat them. It's actually probably good for your business.
The drug czar is good for my business?
Well, I'm just saying, if the government took over what you do, which they possibly should, yeah, it might be a better system. I'm not saying they could do it better than you. They should probably hire you.
Right.
But we have a terrible system in this country where we criminalize people who should be.
Bill?
What's that?
Do you eat at a lot of government
Well, no,
restaurants?
if we spent
I don't get the analogy there.
What I'm saying is, like, let me tell you this. If the government takes over both providing drugs as well as treating drugs, it's going to suck.
Well, they're not taking.
That's what free markets are for, and they're very good at it.
The government is providing drugs?
No, I'm saying if you want the government to get involved in.
No, I'm with you on this one. I want decriminalization of drugs
and socialized medicine.
Well,
take the profit out of health.
Absolutely.
Why do you say no to
And take what we spend punishing people and arresting people and prosecuting people and jailing people for drug crimes and spend it on treatment.
Socialized medicine does not innovate in medicine.
The reason we're punishing people,
the English national health system,
the reason we're putting people in jails
1955.
is because the jails are privatized, and that's
that's true. Of course they are.
What percentage of the American criminal population?
Listen, I just had some guy come to my office that wanted me to invest in a jail.
So
okay.
Don't wait. We are the world's biggest jailer nation.
Absolutely.
Right? And it isn't because of private corporations. 90% of prisoners are in, state-owned prisons. We're locking people up. It isn't the profit motive.
Well, it absolutely is the profit motive. The prison guard union is a very powerful union.
I know, and
it lobbies for things like 3 strikes you're out, because to them prisoners are customers.
Yeah, I agree.
So don't tell me that it's not the profit motive.
What I'm saying is, don't say it's private prison.
Well, it is partly private business. Absolutely. Bryan Cranston.
I know him.
What can we expect to learn from your forthcoming memoir? You're writing a memoir.
I wrote a memoir, yeah. It's called
like
A Life in Parts. So I have to look back on my life because it's over soon, right?
No.
It was just, it's short stories that are autobiographical, and I had a very challenging childhood, and in retrospect, challenging. Didn't have a father around. There was a lot of alcoholism and drug abuse, and
somebody should make that film. I don't know if I'm the person to do it, but actually, I wanted to at the beginning of this election season. I was going to kind of secretly go on a number of these shows, not your show, of course, but other shows, and just kind of show people what happens behind the scenes, how this comes together. And I was just talking to Scott, your producer. That discussion between you and Jeremy that took place, you never see that on the mainstream broadcast networks, where you guys really got into some very serious, you have a serious disagreement.
Wait. HBO is kind of a mainstream broadcast now.
Oh, really? You think so?
HBO?
I don't think HBO is mainstream at all.
Really?
Yes.
Have you seen Game of Thrones?
Have you not? Yeah. You think that's mainstream?
I think we're on a mainstream network. I don't think I do a mainstream show. That's the difference. But that's,
right. Right. Okay, you're the father of dragons.
Let me ask you a broader question. What do you think is the future of documentaries? Because, things have changed in the movie business a lot since you started making them. I don't know in this day and age whether people, they don't even, I see most of my movies when I'm on the road doing stand-up on the weekend in the hotel. And they're like, recently in theaters. And they're like, sometimes they're like, wow, these are big stars. And it never even saw the light of day in a theater because the only movies that seem to open now are about robots punching each other.
Well, let me ask a question back to you. Why haven't you made more documentaries?
Because that's your thing.
No, I'm sorry, but you made your one film is still one of the top 15 largest grossing documentaries of all time.
But I always said I said before it, I said after it, I don't want to be Michael Moore. Only he can do what he does. This is the one topic that I wanted to tackle. Religion is stupid, and there is no God.
Right.
You weren't going to do that
one. Right. Well, you did a great job with it, but
you and I want to do a religion movie together.
We shouldn't. Yes. Are we still live on the internet right now?
We're still live. It doesn't matter because we can't get this thing going.
Well, but the truth is, folks, Bill and I do have a secret plan.
Yeah, we do.
And we've now discussed it publicly, and we're not going to release our 28 pages to you, sir.
We want to do a movie called The Kings of Atheism. I thought,
Okay, there it's out. Right?
There it's out.
It's out.
Well, what's the worst that could happen? That we get it made? As opposed to now when we're not?
No, but you just told the Almighty that we're going to do this, and now
we're not going to do it.
You and I have to survive the next 6 months.
No, I want to. Remember the Kings of Comedy? They did the Kings of Comedy. There was like four African American.
Correct.
And then they did the Latino Kings.
Yes.
For the Kings of Atheism.
Kings of Atheism.
And we can't get anybody we want to sign up for
we are going to have 4 of America's top comedians. I'm going to film it, and we're going to travel through the Bible Belt, putting on these shows.
It's so awesome.
And we are going to live to the end of the production.
The first person I wanted to do it was my fellow atheist and boyfriend, Seth MacFarlane. I can't get him to commit. Maybe you people could.
He will do this.
Well, we can't get him to do it. Maybe they will. If we got Ricky Gervais, me, Sarah Silverman,
and others, I think,
MacFarlane,
others will come out too.
Yes.
Listen, Bill. This is a movement that you actually are responsible for.
It would be such a great movement.
You're the most public person who, for the last decade or so, has been at the forefront of questioning this. And you did it when it was not popular, when somebody at HBO, this mainstream network, Ron, must have said, Bill,
You know, that's
ABC before that.
ABC
was even
did
matter.
right.
That was Disney.
But now people.
But the great thing is that you directing it is that you're not an atheist.
Yes. Well, that's where the humor will come in. You know,
the humor will come in a lot of places.
I will ride the bus with the comedians, you and your atheist friends, and you'll have 10 days.
Right.
You'll have 10 days to convert me to your debauchery, basically.
So all everybody has to do is contact Seth, Ricky, and Sarah and tell them to do our movie, and then we're done.
And Ari, get us the money to do it.
All right. Jeremy, does Edward Snowden seeking and I said this last week on the show, every once in a while he has got to kick it old school. You know, like he does. He's he came out for Exorcism.
Yeah,
it's like,
there you go. Yeah. But that's not that. No one's going to be mad about that.
You
People love Exorcism.
You got to throw some red. Yeah.
That doesn't affect your day to day.
No. You got to throw some red meat to the base. You know.
I'm with him.
Yeah.
Play the game.
The stem cell does affect people. Absolutely.
He's not going to stop it.
Does he control it at all?
No. Oh, okay. Seth Rogen, why does comedy touch less nowadays on social and political issues than it did in the 60s and 70s? And, of course, you were the perfect one.
Exactly.
Since, you're touching on social issues, and you weren't around in this.
And I wasn't alive then. Well, I'll tell you, I don't think that's true at all.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think that's a...
Okay.
I disagree with that.
Disagree with the premise.
Actually, on that one, Bill, I've interviewed a lot of comedians on my show, and a lot of them would say is one of the reasons they don't go there is because they fear, a lot of them fear the protests, they fear now with social media, and so a lot of them say, you know what, if I can focus just on family, focus on things we have in common versus something that could really piss somebody off. I mean, a lot of comedians say, I'm going to be bothered with it.
It's what John Cleese and I were talking about. The crowd is too politically correct.
I don't find that at all. It's really so funny. Yeah.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
I know, but we made a whole movie essentially making fun of Christianity with This Is the End. And
but you're not there in the theater.
Right. That's what's different. A movie is different than the stand-up act because Chris Rock said something in the New York Times. He said... he doesn't like now because no one can even work on your material. He said a joke may not even be ready for public viewing, but I'm working on it. Somebody records it, it gets out, and now I got to explain what the joke was. And so they say, you know what? Don't even waste my time with it.
And also, I must say, This Is the End, which is a movie I truly love. What a brilliant structure, and I love the way it's. It kind of looks like very loose.
Yeah.
But really, obviously, when you watch it the second time, like I did, you see, this beat. It's very clever.
Yeah.
But it didn't even strike me as that anti-Christian. It's just crazy.
But I think some people...
The rapture, and even most Christians don't believe it.
But I think some people who get labeled as comics who are like, ooh, the political correct community is condemning me, forget that they also have to be funny. And I think that when your shit is funny, people are much more willing to accept an idea that they themselves might find horribly offensive, but when they're laughing at it, it makes it much more acceptable.
I also think there's this new genre, which is, you're one of the pioneers of it, Bill. Like you, Jon Stewart, Colbert, a lot of people get their news from funny shows.
Right.
And that's great.
But not all funny shows challenge people to face what maybe is a prejudice of their own, or just a belief they want to hold that is not necessarily true, like Americans are stupid. Anyway, what does it mean, Christian, that European leaders are now turning on Putin?
It means that they have seen the light. It's really good. No, I mean, I think Putin is really dangerous, and Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, who people thought was kind of soft, actually, I think, has a very long vision and is standing firm, and it's a good thing. I think it's what Putin is doing is really dangerous.
Well, certainly. But, I mean, do you think he's really going to take over, like, Estonia?
I think he could try. I mean,
really?
no, seriously. Like, I think the two next things you could see Putin try to do are either.
Why are you laughing?
Is he going after Estonia now?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Baltics would be next.
No, potentially. Yeah. No. But Bill is absolutely right. Like, no, he could.
I don't think he is either. But I mean, that would be the next.
He could either sort of a deeper invasion of Ukraine, which would be full-on war, or in the Baltic states, and it would be Estonia or Latvia.
Because there's many Russians there.
Exactly. They have regions which are 75 and 85% Russian that border Russia, and what you do is the hybrid war scenario you saw in Crimea. You don't like invade with tanks. You send in agitators, you pay local people, you disguise it as a local separatist movement, and then when those local people vote for independence, you say to NATO, so what are you going to do now? Are you going to fight these people? And if Putin wins that, Article 5 is over, and NATO is over, and that's terrifying.
But his economy's in a tank. There's no growth. Oil prices are dropping. This guy's not winning.
Yeah, well, he thinks he's winning because his poll numbers are pretty good. And
you think he looks like Daniel Craig?
Like a kind of slightly puffy Daniel Craig, like a little puffy.
I think he wants to be Daniel Craig.
I thought it was more like a white Pootie Tang myself.
White Pootie Tang.
Right.
Chris Matthews.
Failure was in there were so many failures, but the places where we've had these successes, right? If you look at after World War II, you have a German occupation that lasted until now. We still have troops in Germany. We still have troops in Japan. But these cultures did change and modernize and become
They were modern to begin with. It wasn't like Germany had to come up from where Afghanistan.
Members of a civilized, globalized world.
Wait a
That's
second.
what
You're
Japan
not really
is.
comparing Germany with Afghanistan, are you?
No. What I'm saying, Bill, is I think what Andrew was saying, and I think to your point, it's that we can't change these cultures overnight. We think we can, but sure as hell, if we're going to, we have to stay and commit and be there.
What right do we even have to change these cultures? I mean, that's the part of that.
But we didn't help change Japan, didn't we? Didn't we help change Japan?
Well, if they're throwing acid in schoolgirls' faces...
That's not changing culture, Bill.
No.
That's confronting people who are despicable criminals who would do something like that. That's not a cultural... There's no culture
but it is
where... Now, Billy, it's your turn to throw acid at your sister for not wearing the hijab. I mean, that's just not... That's not culture.
But it's not just a few people who believed in...
it's also not just a few people who were shooting people in the face in Afghanistan and waterboarding people. I mean, there are massive crimes that are committed in the name of religion across the board. We didn't even talk about... I mean, you were talking about a little bit about why people think you're Jewish, but I mean, the fact is, the fact that Israel's our client state is a big part of our problem. Unless we sort of reset how we approach that area of the world, nothing's going to fundamentally change.
Will Obama veto the bill that passed in the House today directing the government to move forward on the Keystone XL pipeline? Yes, of course he will. As he should.
Wait, will he what? Will he veto it?
Will he veto the Senate passed the Keystone pipeline. The House passed the Keystone pipeline, and the Senate probably will in the next Congress, and then he will veto it.
Yeah, he probably will. I think it's more. Why would he veto it though? I mean, it actually will create jobs.
Because we're putting so much
but what's really
carbon in the atmosphere. We want to live.
It's actually a very divisive issue.
Why?
It's amazing. It's a very divisive issue on his own side, though. Labor is totally for the Keystone pipeline, so it's not like it's just throwing something to his face.
But at a certain point, if you're president for almost 8 years, can't you just go with what is right and what must be done?
And he absolutely.
What's he got to lose?
Is it right to create jobs, for the economy? Is it right to
how many jobs?
I thought we hated socialism. Is it that the government should always be the people who are funding a jobs program? I thought we hated that. I thought we were the people who pull ourselves up by our bootstraps.
I thought we wanted to rely on our own natural resources and not on the resources of dictators.
I want to rely on renewable energy that doesn't pollute.
It takes time. You have a transition.
Well, it takes
I'd rather draw on our own energy resources.
Well, it takes time when
right?
one party is completely bought off by the extraction industry. That's what takes time.
Yes.
I mean, there's absolutely no reason, as I said to Rand Wall, changing technologies creates jobs. If you guys didn't get all your bribe money from the oil companies...
They're not ready today.
They're not
ready. They weren't ready 10 years ago.
Yes.
They weren't ready 20 years ago. They have to be ready now.
We are getting there, though. With natural gas is getting there.
There will not be a future.
Very well with natural gas. We have a natural gas renaissance happening in this country, and that's actually where huge jobs are being created. That's really where... I mean, that's the real story of why the president won Ohio.
That's not non-carbon either.
I think we push the envelope as far as we can push it.
I mean, you believe in global warming, right? And
yeah, certainly, and human.
This is not. I know you have a young audience, and I'd like to speak to them. This is when you're young, you haven't been around. You're young.
Yeah, you can tell this camera is the young kid camera.
I see.
Yeah, got some nice music there.
I'll talk to you.
Yeah. I don't want to put too much pressure. Yeah, sure.
No, but they haven't seen many elections. I've seen many. You've seen more than a few, and this has never happened before. No. This kind of an election where Russia hacked one party's emails. Right? You know this. Yeah. You know this, right? One party, one side. And the FBI is okay with it. The FBI is our internal police force. They are supposed to not take sides. They're with Russia. I thought they were the enemy. Okay. This is it's scary.
Yeah, it is.
When one side starts calling the other side criminal, I mean, you may not like Hillary Clinton or agree with her policies, although I don't know why. They hacked her, and she's not that interesting.
That's very interesting.
What did you find? They look everywhere. I mean, her emails were intermingled with Anthony Weiner's. No wonder she wiped her server. I would have had it boiled. But what did they find? A tireless government nerd who never stops working for you.
Yeah.
What criminal? No. It was only a month ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And it really bothers me that America has just absorbed this. Like what? Right. See, somebody's with me on this, but it's ridiculous. No, I mean, this guy, locker room talk. Locker room talk. I've been involved in locker room talk. Locker room talk, you've done it. We're guys. Yeah. Locker room talk is like, boy, she certainly is attractive. I'd like to put my erect penis inside of her. That's an attractive... The locker room at Cornell, Jimmy. But it's hypothetical. I would like to. That's not what he said. He said, this is what I do.
Yeah.
I kiss people without permission. I grab them in the crotch.
Yeah.
And by the way, give me a tic tac. I'm about to do it again.
Yeah.
GOP. GOP now stands for grab our...
Maybe. We're not sure. Can't believe everything you read on the internet. All right, so you're rooting for Trump. Is that what you're saying? Is that not...
It's not funny. I mean, it's funny, and we are trying to be funny, and look, we are funny, but it's not funny.
No.
Because, I mean, this is a whole different thing. I mean, and I did a mea culpa on my show Friday night. I said, I talked about Mitt Romney, George Bush, Reagan, McCain. It was the end of the world. It would never have been the end of the world with those guys. This is different. This guy is different. They have no respect for the rule of law. It's only about vengeance. People say, can he win? Can he win? Does Chris Christie eat over the sink?
Sometimes the best way to do it. Yeah, of course.
And also, I'm scared because, Democrats never figured out, really, how to beat Trump. Every time he went down, it was by his own doing. You said it in your monologue. Now they took away his phone. You want to trust a guy with nuclear codes, like Obama said, who you can't trust with the phone? No, I think what the Democrats have to do is what they do in serial killer movies. When the cops can't figure out how to beat the serial killer, they get another serial killer to work with them who knows how the guy thinks. That's what we got to find another narcissistic billionaire. I'm thinking El Chapo.
I don't think it's legal. I don't think that's possible. I mean, I can Google it. So what do you say to anyone who's undecided still?
Well, I would say, really, first of all, really, I mean, he's a racist, a liar, a tax chief, a deadbeat, a Russian agent, and a sexual predator. How do you find your way out of the door in the morning? This is what I would say to the undecideds. But no, what I would say to the undecideds, what I'm trying to say here, this is a different beast than we've ever encountered before.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't have been so hard on Republicans in the past because they said horrible things about George Bush. He respected the First Amendment. He respected the Constitution. This guy does not. This will be a completely different country. By the way, young people, when fascists take over, they don't give up power. Get used to President Trump for life.
I knew you were going to have strong opinions, so but that's why we love you, and that's why
I'm just telling you the truth. Their whole campaign hang on the idea that America is in a horrible place, and that's why we need a guy who can make it great again. But America isn't in a horrible place.
Yeah.
It's just their alternative reality.
Yes.
They cannot. The black president actually did well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But they can't, that's not in their, yeah, we actually can measure stuff now. You know, facts, figures, they're not in the Bible, we use them now. Unemployment was 10%, now it's 4.9. The stock market was at 6,900, now it's at 18,000. Okay, the black president did well, but in their alternative reality, the black president is horrible. America's hanging by a thread. I mean, if you listen to them, there's always a cold knife at your throat and a brown at your lips.
This is not HBO. I don't know if you know this.
It is tonight. It is always this one on there. All right, bring out the cup, Jimmy.
We love having you on the show, and thank you very much for coming on. And come back when... Bill, everybody! Catch Real Time with Bill Maher Friday nights at 10 p.m. on HBO. We're right back with the World Series champion, Chicago Cubs.
You probably have noticed in America lately that there's something wrong with dudes. The recent stories of sexual harassment are about many things, like misogyny and white privilege and old-fashioned being a pig, but I'm telling you, there is something toxic about this male laziness. If Harvey Weinstein had made even a minimal effort, join Jenny Craig. Shaved. Listened. Generally tried to not look like a Russian cab driver. He could have attracted women the old-fashioned way, by being rich and not entirely repulsive. Someone has to help me decide who in this photo I should feel more sorry for. Jimmy Carter, who kind of got pushed into the background, or Barack Obama, who's just about to meet David Copperfield. Neural, now that we know George H.W. Bush's go-to joke while groping women is, you know who my favorite magician is, David Copperfield. David Copperfield has to admit that, ironically, when he grabs a woman's private parts, he always says, you know who my favorite president is? We're not saying David Copperfield really does that. It was for the point of the joke. Okay. Neural, now that Nabisco is offering the new Mystery Oreo, where they don't tell you the flavor, you have to guess. Their next cookie must be called, Just Shut Up and Eat It, You Fat Fuck. Come on, Nabisco, if I wanted what I'm eating to be a mystery, I'd order Chinese food. Snowflakes, you know her. All right, new rule now that Taco Bell has launched its own clothing line, Urban Outfitters has to start selling tacos that make you sick. And if you do purchase an item from the Taco Bell line, may I recommend this jacket because it helpfully warns the people behind you that you've just been to Taco Bell. No, Republicans have to answer this question. You're kidding, right? This is the guy you want to be in the United States Senate, the theocrat waving around a gun in a Roy Rogers costume. This isn't a senator. This is the guy you hire to play your kid's birthday party. New rule, just because our dogs are playing together at the dog park, it doesn't mean you and I have to talk. They're dogs. When they see an asshole, they sniff it. I'm a human. When I see an asshole, I pretend I'm listening to a podcast. Thank you, John. New rule, whoever picks out furniture for the UN must tell me how they found a chair the exact same color as Trump's hair. I mean, look at it. You can't tell where the synthetic, heavily dyed upholstery ends and the chair begins. Not that we couldn't see it coming. New rule, millennials must stop saying they wish they grew up in the baby boomer era. Take it from this baby boomer, you wouldn't have liked it. The device we read our books on was the toilet. Our podcasts were radio, and they went to static when you drove under a bridge. Our toys sucked. The box was more fun to play with. And back then, a complete breakfast included a bowl of gluten. No, it's not. Oh, no, it's okay. Shut up. New rule. Nurse Casey Hickox has to explain one simple question. If you're so non-contagious, how come your senator is sitting 3,000 miles away here with me? You didn't meet her, did you? And government officials must calm down and look at this logically. It's Maine. The best quarantine policy is there's nowhere to go anywhere.
Oh, come on.
I'm just kidding. I love Maine. I was in Portland this year. New rule, now that former Navy SEAL Robert O'Neill has admitted to being the man who shot Osama bin Laden, he has to tell us what badass action movie quip he delivered right before he shot him. And please, Bob, if you didn't say something like that, just make it up. Tell us you raised your rifle, spit out some chaw, and said, "Tell the virgins I said hello." If you're going to get the world's smallest man together with the world's tallest man, come on, they have to do a buddy cop movie. How has this not happened already? They're police detectives who don't want to work with each other because the tall one can't fit in the squad car and the little one is too old for this shit. And one of them is dating Mila Kunis. Sprinkle in some awkward high fives, and come summer, we'll be juggling popcorn statues at the MTV Movie Awards. New rule, now that we know that cured Ebola patients can have infectious semen for months afterwards, Trojan must come out with a hazmat condom. Because there's nothing more annoying than having a one-night stand and waking up with AIDS and Ebola. And finally, new rule, it's great to be back. Thank you for welcoming us back for another year. We appreciate you having us in your home. And as we start a new year, let's start a new tradition, a good tradition, to replace one of our stupid traditions, like the Electoral College or the drug war. Let's make it a tradition that just as individuals make New Year's resolutions, so should America. And finally, new rule, don't make me go back to my old title. Anybody here remember the 90s? The 90s, people? Okay. It was a crazy time, and I had a show called Politically Incorrect. Because, thank you. Because back then, political correctness had gotten so out of hand. I mean, blacks became African Americans, Mexicans became Latinos, and Indians became casino owners. Broken homes became dysfunctional families. Bums became the homeless. Crazy people became Fox News reporters. Oh, and it was a tough time for comics. One young comedian even got into big trouble for saying the word chink. And finally, new rule, the only time you should take a gun into a Sonic restaurant is when you're robbing it. Yes, lately firearms enthusiasts have been taking their guns out to public places for play dates with other gun owners and their guns. And in the process, frightening lots of properly adjusted people at places like Sonic and Chili's and Chipotle and Jack in the Box. proving once again that America's gun laws are worthless and sad, and that its dining options aren't much better. And finally, new rule, now that the people of Colorado have legalized pot, for everybody, and not just for longtime sufferers of, well, whatever it is I have. They must realize they are the Jackie Robinson of marijuana legislation. Which is why they can't go all Cheech and Chong on us. You guys have to get this right, or it's going to ruin it for everybody. So embrace it. Be the Jackie Robinson of pot. And finally, new rule, now that Iraq is falling apart again, someone needs to drill it into the American psyche that broken nations are a lot like broken people. You can't fix them. Look at Afghanistan and the lawless tribal areas of Pakistan. Look at Denise Richards and the lawless tribal areas of Charlie Sheen. Lately, there's been so many calls for American intervention in Syria, Ukraine, North Africa, now Iraq again. Maybe America is the one that needs an intervention. Maybe America needs Dr. Phil to come by and ask us, how's that nation building working for you? And finally, new rule, you know how sometimes you lose something and you look all over the house for it and you can't find it anywhere and eventually you just give up and forget about it? We should do that with Malaysia Flight 370. Watching CNN continue to breathe life into this thing is like watching a doctor on Grey's Anatomy pounding on a patient's chest until another doctor has to pull him off and say, Derek, it's over. That's what I want to say to Wolf Blitzer. Wolf, it's over. Time to move on. There'll be other ocean disasters. We'll always have Atlantis. But this isn't news anymore. It's an episode of Unsolved Mysteries. And finally, new rule, now that Americans are getting wise to the dangers of being spied on by the government, they have to start getting more alarmed about spying on each other. Because if the Donald Sterling mess proved anything, it's that there's a force out there just as powerful as Big Brother. Big Girlfriend. Well, just once, some monster has to go to San Francisco and not destroy the Golden Gate Bridge. Go to Fisherman's Wharf. Try the crab. This weekend, Godzilla wrecks the Golden Gate Bridge, just like it was wrecked in Pacific Rim, X-Men, Terminator, Superman, Planet of the Apes. It came from beneath the sea. Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus. Leave San Francisco alone. If I wanted to see a 20,000-ton monster destroy a bridge, I'd move to New Jersey. Had to be done, Kevin. New rule, don't give away the ending of your movie in the title. Tell people these things. Finally, new rule, conservatives must be told that President Obama saying he wouldn't let any son of his play pro football is not controversial. It's common sense, like telling your kids not to play in traffic. But on the right, any critique of our holy religion football is blasphemy because real men don't point out facts or consider consequences, and brain injuries are fun. That's what makes a Terry Bradshaw such a character. And a Sarah Palin interview so entertaining. Now that shocked Fruit Loop lovers have learned that all Fruit Loops, no matter what color, are the same flavor.
Wait!
They are? Someone must explain gently to them that Fruit Loops don't contain any fruit either. It's been a sad evening. And that the word fruit isn't spelled with two O's. Oh, hell, let's call Fruit Loops what they really are. Gay Cheerios. And finally, new rule, the Sparklets guy must tell me why nobody talks around the water cooler anymore. But wait, I think I know why. It's because as a culture, we don't have enough in common anymore. And that's because the internet, which was supposed to unite the world, has become too adept at serving us personalized content. Do you know what I saw on Yahoo's front page this morning? No, you don't, because mine isn't the same as yours. People get news feeds now that just spit back customized stories based on what we've clicked on in the past. So I, for example, might see a lot of stories about pot, American history, and, of course, Christian mingle. Whereas Ted Nugent just gets ads for Prozac and bullets. And finally, new rule, no one can blame me when I say this is a stupid country, when 60% of the adults in it think the Noah's Ark story is literally true. Which is why I'm already sick of seeing the ads for this floating piece of giraffe crap. Although, the movie has been condemned by both Christians and Muslims, so it must be doing something right. And they say it also may lose a fortune for the studio, which would put it in hot water with the Jews, too. Oh, new rule, now that 1 in 5 people in the UK admitted they would have sex with a robot, inflatable glove dolls must stop looking so surprised. They should look surprised, Steve. And order. The Pope is a pimp. I'm serious. I find myself wanting to ask this Pope a question I've never wanted to ask a Pope before. Can I party with you? Now, before flying into a road rage and getting out of your truck and pounding on another driver's window, like Florida's Joseph Carl did, make sure you put your truck in park, or you could end up running yourself over, like Florida's Joseph Carl did. Now, the embarrassing part isn't when the front bumper passes over you. It's when the back bumper goes over you and you get teabagged by your own truck nuts. That's it. And the makers of Sharknado have to try harder to be stupid. Have they seen Heaven is for Real? That's a good one. Besides a really laughable, stupid sequel, it's always 3D. You need glasses, like Jaws 3D and Piranha 3D and Rick Perry. And finally, new rule, crazy idea division. Since there's an election coming up, Democrats might want to say something about what they're proposing to do for America sometime between now and November. Crazy idea. Everyone is predicting disaster for Democrats in the midterms, and their response seems to be, yeah, sucks to be us right now. Well, maybe that's because their basic talking points always start with an apology. Like, Obamacare is far from perfect, but nothing's perfect. But you don't start with pointing that out about something you're supposed to like. Hey, Bob, how's your wife? Well, she's not perfect, but she beats masturbating alone. And finally, new rule, Democrats need to stop despairing about the gloomy midterm predictions and realize there's actually a glimmer of hope, and it has to do with suicide. Let me finish. For decades now, liberals pushed the issue of assisted suicide, and it got nowhere. Then they started to call it aid in dying, and its approval shot up 20 points, and it's now legal in 5 states. That's the power of language. And if they took the word dying out altogether and called it early retirement, it would probably win over 10 more states. If they called it death by chocolate, they could get all 50. Well, since we imported 4 billion pounds of food from China last year, I don't need to know that a Chinese Walmart once sold mislabeled donkey meat. That's what it was supposed to be. That was actually ground up fox. If I can't trust Walmart brand, Chinese-made, fox-free donkey burgers, what can I trust? Walmart donkey burgers. One bite and you'll say, this tastes like ass. Michael, you know those local news stories where a returning American soldier surprises his kids? Well, now that we're going back to Iraq, we should do some where the soldier surprises a kid in Iraq. Hey, Muhammad, it's me! And this time I promise I'll never leave you again. New Major League pitchers can go ahead and wear this new padded cap as protection against line drives to the head. But when they give up a home run, they have to say, "Aw, rats." And finally, new rule, Tea Party people have to explain something to me. I know you can't stand the unemployed, those takers who don't work. But if you're the hard workers, why do you all have so much time to listen to talk radio in the middle of the day? I mention this because last week brought the news that powerful Republican Congressman Mike Rogers was leaving the House to join an already long list of conservative radio hosts that includes Bill O'Reilly, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, Laura Ingraham, Michael Savage, Monica Crowley, Dennis Prager, Herman Cain. I could go on. But who could blame you for thinking, geez, aren't there enough right-wing radio hosts as it is? No, never. There are never enough. Why? Because the Tea Party always has room for one more voice. And finally, new rule, the runners-up for the most useless person in Congress in our Flip-A-District contest must not feel bad. After all, there can only be one winner, but let me assure each and every one of you, in my book, you're all losers. But be warned, we did not pick the biggest clown, because the real problem in Washington isn't the funniest fools. It's people like our winner tonight, the living embodiment of legislation for hire, the men's warehouse of empty suits. From Minnesota's 2nd District, come on down, Congressman John Klein! I'll prove it to you now, Jerry. Finally, new rules. Scientists must conduct a study to determine which is easier to distract, a cat with a laser pointer or the American voter. Ooh, yeah, that's a good point. Good point. Good point. Long point. And if you think I'm exaggerating, please come listen to my story about a man named Sam Brownback. Sam Brownback. I know, sounds like a gay black porn star. But no, he is the governor of Kansas, and he was swept into office in 2010 with a simple promise to provide, quote, a shot of adrenaline into the heart of the Kansas economy. An unfortunate metaphor borrowed from Pulp Fiction, where he's a coked-up hitman and Kansas is a junkie who's ODing on the floor. The only difference being in the movie, the junkie lived. And finally, new rule, Democrats have to wake up and realize that voting is the one thing that scares Republicans, which is why Republicans try to make it so hard. But not impossible. Of course it's sleazy, racist, and anti-democratic to pass voter ID laws. But the fact that they're making it harder to vote, let that inspire you. You're an underdog. You're Brad Pitt in a tank. And is it really that hard to get a stupid ID card? And no, I'm not talking about the 100-year-old lady whose birth certificate was lost in the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. I'm talking to people out there who won't stand in line for an hour to vote, but who'll camp out in front of Best Buy on Thanksgiving night to buy a TV 3 inches bigger than the one they already have. And finally, new rule, now that the race for president in 2016 has finally begun, Democrats must turn to the one person who has a record of competence and reform unmatched in their party. I'm talking, of course, about the man California just reelected, Jerry Brown. The man who took California from broke and ungovernable, as it was said by to be under Governor English as a second language, took it to flush and leading the nation in job creation. If Jerry Brown was 55, that accomplishment in this giant state would have Democrats hyping him for president. But they're not, because he's 76, and ageism is the last acceptable prejudice in America. Well, that and Asian drivers. Finally, new rule, instead of giving an I voted sticker to the people who did vote, let's make the people who didn't vote wear one that says, I couldn't be bothered. And then let's stop patting ourselves on the back for doing something we're supposed to do anyway. I voted. It's like wearing a sticker that says, I feed my dog. I flush after using the toilet. I keep my clothes on at the playground. Finally, new rule. I don't know if there is a hell, but if there is, on the trip to get there, the in-flight movie must be Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas. But if there isn't a hell, as I suspect, I'd like to take a crack at saving Christmas myself. Because I think it does need saving. You know why? Because when the subject of Christmas comes up now, I notice so many people roll their eyes and say some variation of, I hate Christmas. Well, I'm not ready to throw Christmas under the bus. I say, let's save Christmas. What do you say? Ludwig Dolizel, the Czech Republic indigent, dubbed Europe's dirtiest man because he makes a fire each night and sleeps in the warm ashes, sadly must realize life holds one more indignity. Donald Sterling doesn't want him taking pictures with his girlfriend. First the bear, now this guy. All right. Well, if you're the leader of a country who just had 300 girls get kidnapped and you can't find them, your name can't be Good Luck Jonathan. I'm sorry, that's not the name of a president. That's the name of a children's book or a movie. It sounds so made up. Oh my God, someone called the IRS. I think I found Wesley Snipes. Now, the woman who posted this picture of a fishing trophy on Reddit, claiming it looks like a penis, is, well, she's right. She's right. That looks like a dick. I'm sorry. But the important thing to remember is whether a man is showing you his penis or the fish he just caught, your job is the same, to pretend you can't believe how big it is. New rule, researchers who just did an extensive months-long study to determine that koala bears cling to tree trunks to stay cool have to admit it may also have something to do with them not wanting to fall out of the tree. New rule, so even Eric Cantor has to admit if you spend your life cutting programs that help children, you deserve to get beaten by a guy named Brad. It's like Ted Cruz losing to someone named Tommy Not an Asswipe. Someone from the Russian government must reassure Russian goalkeeper Igor Akinev, who let a critical World Cup ball go right through his hands, that there are no hard feelings. In fact, President Putin wants to buy you a drink. No, really, what's your poison? New rule, the Republican prankster who keeps following Hillary Clinton around in an orange squirrel costume has to stop. First of all, she's not even running for president yet, and secondly, why a squirrel? Oh, that's right, because Republicans like to gather all their nuts in the fall. New rule, someone has to tell the dude who walked into a New York City McDonald's chatting on his cell phone with a knife stuck in his back that there is such a thing as playing it too cool. Stop saying Obama's handshake with the horse's head was his weirdest meeting of the week. That was the next day when he met with the horse's ass. New rule, with all the things going on in the world, John Kerry must understand this is not the time to play I Believe I Can Fly. Plus, John, look around. They're Asians. All they're thinking is, clearly he did not master his string instrument by age 3. New rule, I understand that some mysteries will never be solved, but someone has to tell me why hot dog buns used to go bad in 4 days and now they stay fresh for 2 years. And taste like Maxi Pads. I mean, ask yourself this one question. If even mold won't eat this food, should I? Rural British Columbia, if you want me to vacation there, don't advertise the likelihood that I'm going to run into a giant bear. Awaken. Oh, I'm awake because there's a grizzly bear in my tent. New rule. Despite a UN report this week saying greenhouse gas emissions rose the fastest in 30 years, we all must look at the bright side. Carbon enhances sunsets, causing the D.C. skyline to turn a delightful shade of John Boehner. New rule, I'm no fashion expert, but from now on, these shirts must be called jerseys. And these shirts should be called wife beaters. New rule, if you're one of the 9 people who have complained that their new iPhone 6 Plus got bent in their back pocket, you have to consider that maybe you just have a great big fat ass. Don't complain to Apple, eat one. Well, if the protesters in Hong Kong want our support, hello, English. We don't look at this and want to join your cause. We look at this and think, does that come with fried rice? Young Han Boon, the Asian fisherman who hauled this thing in, says that upon seeing it for the first time, it was so creepy and so scary, he actually thought twice before rubbing it on his penis. And all you jerks on Twitter who've been criticizing Renee Zellweger for merely trying to survive in a youth-obsessed culture have to shut up and just accept her new look.
No, it's not. I don't know. It's okay.
Shut up. New rule. Nurse Casey Hickox has to explain one simple question. If you're so non-contagious, how come your senator is sitting 3,000 miles away here with me? You didn't meet her, did you? And government officials must calm down and look at this logically. It's Maine. The best quarantine policy is there's nowhere to go anyway.
Oh, come on.
I'm just kidding. I love Maine. I was in Portland this year. New rule, now that former Navy SEAL Robert O'Neill has admitted to being the man who shot Osama bin Laden, he has to tell us what badass action movie quip he delivered right before he shot him. And please, Bob, if you didn't say something like that, just make it up. Tell us you raised your rifle, spit out some chaw, and said, "Tell the virgins I said hello." If you're going to get the world's smallest man together with the world's tallest man, come on, they have to do a buddy cop movie. How has this not happened already? They're police detectives who don't want to work with each other because the tall one can't fit in the squad car and the little one is too old for this shit. And one of them is dating Mila Kunis. Sprinkle in some awkward high fives, and come summer, we'll be juggling popcorn statues at the MTV Movie Awards. New rule, now that we know that cured Ebola patients can have infectious semen for months afterwards, Trojan must come out with a hazmat condom. Because there's nothing more annoying than having a one-night stand and waking up with AIDS and Ebola. And finally, new rule, it's great to be back. Thank you for welcoming us back for another year. We appreciate you having us in your home. And as we start a new year, let's start a new tradition, a good tradition, to replace one of our stupid traditions, like the Electoral College or the drug war. Let's make it a tradition that just as individuals make New Year's resolutions, so should America. Well, the Central African Republic, right after they finish fighting their civil war, must come up with a better name for their country. It's like if we named Kansas Central Flap State. Also, Mad Dog, a Christian rioter who ate a Muslim cab driver in the Central African Republic this week, has to blame himself the next time he can't get a cab. What kind of Christian eats a man's body and blood? I mean, Jesus Christ, you're worse than that nun. New rule, now that liberals have forwarded their agenda by inserting a mass gay wedding into the Grammys, conservatives must match them tit for tat by having a mass shooting at the Country Music Awards. And finally, new rule, now that Ohio's Billy Stanley got his dying wish to be buried aboard his beloved Harley, let's never do that again. Otherwise, it's just a matter of time before a woman demands to be buried straddling the machine she loved. It's so sensitive. New rule, after listing the side effects of Chantix, the pill that helps you quit smoking, anger, anxiety, depression, thoughts of killing yourself, the drug company must admit that one can experience those same feelings by giving up cigarettes without taking Chantix. And rule, Yakov Smirnov must explain to the Russian Cossacks who whipped Pussy Riot that in America, pussy whips you. Remember him? Yeah. New rule, and Jerry must admit the real reason they introduced their new core ice cream with chocolate and vanilla and a column of fudge in the middle was to taunt Republicans. It is everything they fear about Obama. Half dark, half white, but really dark at the core. But to be fair, they also have a flavor to taunt Hillary. Well, George Zimmerman is welcome to make personal appearances at as many gun shows as he would like, as long as they put up the posters in black neighborhoods and it says, "Bring your gun and meet George Zimmerman." The NCAA basketball tournament has to change its name from March Madness, which could be seen as offensive to the mentally ill, to something more accurate like white guys watching black guys play. New rule, whoever sent 340 grams of cocaine packed in 14 condoms to the Vatican, you're not helping. Bad enough a kid gets victimized by a priest. Now he's got to hang around after and listen to him jabber on for another hour? You know, someone has to tell always the makers of Infinity menstrual pads that always means infinity. It's like if eternity made a perfume called Forever. Plus, is having an infinite period a good thing? You know, I'm not a lady, but I've never heard one say, "These cramps are so great, I wish they'd never end." Oh, if your future plans include murdering someone, you probably shouldn't get a neck tattoo that says murder. That's what Jeff Chapman did in Kansas, and now he wants the state to pay for the removal of his murder tattoo because it might make the jury think he had murder on his mind. I got a better idea, Jeff. Wear a turtleneck. Or if that's too gay for you, tattoo "I didn't" on your forehead. And then the jury will see the message, "I didn't murder." Oh, who am I kidding? They'll convict you anyway. Enjoy prison, dumbass. New rule, stop showing me tiny, horrifying insects magnified 1,000 times. That's why God made them microscopic. So we couldn't see them. As long as this thing hasn't left my hotel blanket and hopped onto my pubes, I don't care. And the Japanese cafe that sits people dining alone with a giant stuffed animal so they don't get sad has to understand that this makes things infinitely more sad. Especially when the stuffed animal says, "I'm sorry, I don't think this is working out." New rule, slow down. North Carolina voters barely had time to meet Steve Wiles, the anti-gay Republican state Senate candidate, before learning he's also a female impersonator named Miss Monica Sinclair. Kind of reminds me of when Bill Clinton said if you voted for him, you also got Hillary, and that was 2 for the price of 1. And it means Wiles can be his own other woman in a sex scandal. Because, of course, he can literally go fuck himself. You're